Hello and welcome another one. And today I'm going to talk about my references and how I use them. There's two ways I use references. Music reference. One is if I don't know a room that I'm going in. And then two, I use the same songs over and over and over and over and over a lot. And there's a good reason. When it comes to audio, you want stability. You want the same results as best as possible, because if you're in the repetitive work with clients, you want repetitive results, right? So it's been curated for a while, this playlist that I have, and I'll share it with this video. It's Spotify. It's about 20 songs or so. I have them grouped by styles and what I look for them. I'm gonna read it out of my notes because it's I have like seven songs here, and these are the ones that I use the most. I think I'm gonna add another one to my most used ones, but depending on the situation I am in, meaning if I'm tuning a room, I use the same strategy, all of them. When it comes to working on music, before I start a session, I always listen to at least one or two songs of this playlist, minus refreshment or something else. But for the most part, this is what I normally go for. And I think I got this in order from one through. And the first one is Forward by Deadmau5. Deadmau5, this song is very repetitive. It has a long intro, it has good bass foundation. It's electronic music, so you have the constant of the reproduction of the sound with the synths and the 808s. This song gets you a long-term time for you to get acclimated to a given room, because it has, like I said, the repetitive part of it throughout the entire song. So it lets you develop a good sense of presence and space when you're working in the room. The second one, and probably one the most I use, is Give Life Back to Music by Daft Punk. This is probably the perfect album of all times. Debatable, but that's fine. But this song has a lot of representation within the mid-range, especially low end, and the clarity and pristine of the sound reproduction. Go find them if you haven't listened to them. I'm sure the world knows them. But this song specifically is the one I use the most every now and then when I'm listening to something new. This one is a jazz artist, Patricia Barber. I listened to Autumn's Leaf, and this has a very interesting bass solo, or like an upright bass. This song is very, very intimate and also has a lot of micro details. So if you're trying to understand your speaker system and how much of a resolution your speaker system has, this song titled Autumn Leaves is extremely tailored for that purposes. And the reason is the upright bass it's very dynamic, extremely dynamic. So if your speakers are not efficient, you'll notice this. Her voice kind of like in the, I would say, upper mid-range and above, not lower mid-range. And the composition itself is nice. Obviously, you're gonna hear a little bit of hiss on the background because of the floor noise of the recording place. That's fine. If you don't listen to it, then your speakers are masking the sound. If you don't hear the movement of the hands when he's doing the solo, or like those notes when he's like doing some progressions, your speakers are not as dynamic and or revealing as possible. Something to look for. This one is in Spanish, but you don't need to understand Spanish. You just need to understand how it sounds. Now, there's two versions of this one. I recently been using the vocal version, and I'll get back to that. It's La Complicidad by Cultura Profética. I know this band for ages at this point. I've been listening to this song and records for years. It's probably my favorite reggae band at this point. But there's something about this song, the intro, the guitar is distorted in purpose, even though it's a clean guitar. But when I talked to the engineers, because this song was recorded when I was in school, in playback back in Puerto Rico. They're recording this album, so I asked him why is this sounding like so. It was intended to do that, and it has a very good overall balance. It was all recorded analog, very little digital, and the musicianship and craftsmanship of this album is top notch. You don't need to listen to in songs in Spanish if you don't want to. Just listen to how it sounds in your room. It's an overall well-produced song for referencing how good your speakers will sound with a reggae style music. I got another one in Spanish, and it's called Café, which is coffee, by Eddie Palmieri. This one is obviously like 70s style salsa. It has a lot of transient and dynamics on it. Obviously, there's a lot of trumpets and I would say you call that wind instruments. Yeah, and it's very if your speakers are efficient but also have a lot of high end, and or your room is not controlled, this will be a little thrilling on the high end because a trumpet is hard to control. And if your speakers are revealing enough but not high end boosted, then this should not affect the session that you're listening to it. But yeah, I like it because how wide it sounds, and it takes you a little bit of a different perspective of how things were recorded back then versus now. And I like the dynamic change when I listen to it. This one, a lot of bass, so don't get intimidated with this one. It's not your room. The actual recording has a lot of bass. So if you notice and you walk around your room as you play the song, you feel a lot of energy in certain areas of the room, that's fine. This song is called Las Tumbas by Gomba Yavari, another band, reggae band from Puerto Rico. Know them extremely well as well. It does have a lot of bass. It has a bass solo, and it's round bass, like, so he used finger style, and it's rounded, very kind of like dub style ish bass. So it's very even play style, like nicely compressed, but also I'm a bass player, so I know how he's playing in a way. He's playing very controlled, but also the decay of the notes, it has a lot of sustain. So along the way, if you start to listen to this song more and more, you start to listen to his playing techniques. So what I like about this song for in a studio environment is it tells you right away if you have a problem with the low end, as long as you know the song. Again, this is the importance of using the same song over and over and over and over, whether you're auditioning for new speakers or you just want to sit down and just understand your room a little bit. And I think it's a refreshment. That's why I keep listening to the same stuff before I start a session. That way I can get tuned into the room. And that's how I try to achieve consistency, because I understand the speakers rather than understanding what I'm trying to achieve of the mix. If I understand the speakers in relationship to the room, I know what to look for kind of quickly. And this is the last one for this video. I got more on that playlist, so I encourage you to watch it. And if you have questions about them and why I use them, they, like I said, they go in order. So a lot of bass and there's rock. I'll briefly talk about them once I'm done with this one. So this is Dirty Loops, Sayonara Love. Dirty Loops is it's all musicians, rock band, but this song has so much output and impact. It definitely, in a well-tuned room, the low end is so impactful, quick, snappy, and it just sounds amazing. And I had a good experience with it. I stuck with it back in Orlando in River Studios. Carlos showed it to me and it stuck with me. So it also has a bass solo. As you can tell, I'm looking for bass heavy music because bass is hard to control in a room, especially smaller rooms or project rooms. So the more I understand the low end in my room and or other mixes, the better I can suit the mix for mastering. Other songs, and this is off the top of my head, I have Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine has one of the most tightest sounds when it comes to bass and kick drum, and it's in a good, well-balanced, very revealing speaker system. You can hear how that Ampeg rig plays and you can hear his plucking style. Again, if you have a very revealing system, it's very, you can, again, if you're not a bass player, you may not get this, but this part of here, we all have a different sound in here, and this is how we make tone brighter or duller. So if you have calluses or different texture here, which we are all different, you have a different technique to mute and let sustain go. Again, if you're a bass player, you get what I'm saying. I do have Dr. Dre, I have Korn. Korn has a very dark, velvety background sound. It's very mid-scoop as well, but Funky, the bass player, has a very particular style of techniques, which it helps for the dynamics of the song, and it's very revealing on the system. I got way more songs in the playlist. I encourage you to take a look at the playlist and see what you like, see what you don't, and if you have any questions about why I use them in a certain way or the other, feel free to shoot me a message. That's it for now. Be nice to each other and your pets. I'll see you guys around.